Hello everybody, my name is Professor Lombardo, and this first video, Excel 101, is designed to give us a nice introduction to the elements of Excel. If you used Excel before, some of this stuff will be review. If you haven't, this will give you a nice introduction. Either way, I think it's a good idea to watch this video, if for no other reason is to just refresh your memory on how to use Excel. So we will be using Excel 2013, and if you happen to have Excel 2016, it's very unlikely that you'll even notice a difference. For the purposes of this class, the differences between the two things are minimal at best. So there shouldn't be any problems in that area. So when you open an Excel workbook, what's presented to you is the first sheet in that workbook, which is just a collection of what we'll call cells. A cell is one of these individual boxes here. Each box contains a single piece of information. And we use this to store the information that we're going to do statistical analysis on, keep records for our business, etc. If you select a collection of cells, we'll call this a range. And what I want to cover first is how to find the location of a cell and how to describe a range of different cells using some shortcut notation. One thing that you'll notice is that when you click on a particular cell, the column, which is indexed by letters, and the row, which is indexed by numbers, will sort of highlight. So the cell that has a 7 that we have selected right here, we could identify as being in position F5. This is kind of like if you've ever played the game Battleship, right? You have to indicate a column and a row for where you're firing your torpedo, and then it's either a hit or a miss. Same type of idea in Excel. So each cell in a worksheet is going to have its own unique location. So this one that I just selected, a different 7, is in J4. Now one thing you may also notice is that if I select a cell, up in your upper left-hand corner, there's a little box here that automatically highlights or tells you the cell location of what's selected. So here I selected F10, here I selected I7, and it's very easy to read off. Another nice use of that box is if you put in a cell location, so let's say I want to go to, let's say, H5. If I type in H5 and hit enter, it will take me immediately to that cell. If we'd like to work with a range, let's quickly select a range here. So if you grab a cell, you click and hold, you can drag and you can select a range, a rectangular range of cells as follows. I'm just going to make these a different color so we know what range we're talking about. So if we want to describe this collection of cells, this range of cells, here's a cool way to do it using Excel. If you think about the upper left-hand corner and the lower right-hand corner of this rectangular range, specifying these two things, in a sense, gives us an idea of what the dimensions of this box should be. Okay? And that's exactly how we put together a rectangular range in Excel. We specify the first box, which would be F3. We put a colon to indicate that we're selecting a rectangular range. And then we have to tell, essentially, Excel where it needs to stop, which in our case is J10. So to describe the range that we just selected here, F3, upper left-hand corner, J10, lower right-hand corner, right? We separate those two cells by a colon, and it will tell Excel this is how you describe a range that has a rectangular shape. And here's the neat thing. If we go to that box in the far upper left-hand corner where we were previously reading off all of our cell addresses, if you click into that and you type in that shortcut, it will automatically highlight that range. All right, so I'm going to take away the fill here. Now, one of the reasons why this is important is because if you're dealing with a lot of data, right? Suppose I had 2,000 pieces of data all in column B. Rather than clicking and dragging and waiting as we slowly count out to 2,000, it takes way too much time. What we can do instead is say, all right, we start at B2, and then the last entry, since we're just in a column, will also be in column B, but we'll be out to 1,000. And if we click in that, it will automatically highlight those 1,000 cells without us having to actually physically scroll down to 1,000. So once you start dealing with larger data sets, this becomes a very critical skill, being able to describe ranges. Okay, so let's do another example here. Let's suppose that we're working with this range here. Remember, we look at it, it's definitely rectangular. We know the upper left-hand corner is D5, so let me write that down. And the lower right-hand corner is I7. So I'll click back in here, I'll put a colon to indicate I'm describing a range, and I'll type in I7. So this is what that sort of peach range would be. And again, if I want to highlight that, I just have to type in D5 colon I7. It tells me essentially you're starting and you're stopping cells to describe a rectangle. And now these things are highlighted. In this class, the ranges that you tend to work with will either be a collection of just columns or possibly just rows, or sometimes you'll get actual boxes like this. But in certain cases, you may need to describe more exotic ranges like the green ones here. So the technique for doing this is to just break this up into 1, 2, 3, 4 separate pieces, describe each one using the previous technique. All right, so in our first case, we'd start at D3, we'd go out to F6. So as a range, we would describe this as D3 colon F6. This is a single cell with position 8, 9. This would start at L1 and go down to L4. So we would write this as L1 colon L4. Here we start at K13 and we move out to M13. So we would write this as K13 colon M13. Now if we wanted to highlight this in one big collection using this box in the upper left hand corner, all we have to do is take each one of these things and separate them by a colon. So what this would end up looking like if we were to describe it as a range, is just each one of these descriptions separated with a comma. So we would have D3 to F6, comma, H9, comma, L1 to L4, comma, K13 colon M13. So this would be the range description of this more exotic range. And if we type this in up here, D3 to F6, H9, L1 to L4, and K13 to M13, it will select each one of those pieces, and now we can say change the color if we want. The last thing I want to show you today is how to do something called cell referencing. So this will be a very useful technique. We'll use it throughout the year or throughout the semester. So let's suppose that there's a certain amount of information that's very important to me. So maybe this is in cell D3. I'm going to highlight it. And I want to use it elsewhere without actually affecting this cell. So let's say I'm going to do some work over here. So I want, let's say, just a copy of that particular cell. Here's what I can do. I can type in an equal sign, and I can type in the cell address of the information I'm interested in. So we're in D3. So if I were to type in D3, you'll notice it's a subtle change. It moves from black into blue. And if I hit enter, the information from D3 is copied into cell 04. Another way you can do this is if you have all the data where you can see it. If you type an equal sign and then you just click on the cell that you want, the same thing will occur. Okay? Now, one of the nice features of using cell referencing, right, where you put information from one cell, right, in 04, we have information coming from D3. One of the nice things about this is that if I change the information in D3, maybe instead of a 10 it becomes an 81, Excel will automatically update any other referenced cell with that new information. Right, so if you have a data set where you might have to tweak some of the numbers for whatever reason, but you want your analysis to update automatically, you can use this process of cell referencing in order to do that. So once again, if I were to change this to say 72, each one of these cells over here, since they're using a cell referencing formula, equals D3, right? They will update as well. Okay. If you want to keep your information in different places, you can also add worksheets within a workbook. So if you'll notice there's a little plus sign down here. If you click that plus sign, it'll add a new worksheet, gives you a brand new collection of cells where you can put in new information. Let's say this time it's text. All right. Excel is a wonderful tool. If you right-click on these, you can rename them. So let's call this text. And if you click on this one, we can call this numbers. Okay. The nice thing about this is that I can use cell referencing between sheets by doing the following little tricks. So let's suppose in cell D4 of text, I want to go back and get our original number D3 in the numbers sheet. So here's the way you do this. You start with a cell referencing beginning, you put an equals sign, you put in the name of the sheet. So in our case, our sheet is called numbers. That's where we want to pull our information from. If you put an exclamation point, and then the cell address in that sheet where you want your information, and hit enter, it will automatically go to the number sheet, find D3, pull that information, and put it into that cell. And that's pretty cool, because once again, if I update here, if I change this to 33, not only does it update on this worksheet, it updates on my other worksheet as well. So this primer should get you going. Taught you some basic things here, the difference between a cell and a range, how to describe cell locations and cell ranges, and then use this shortcut bar up here. We also talked about how to add sheets, name sheets, and then do cell referencing, which we'll be doing quite a bit of this semester. All right, thank you very much.